Okay, quick story time, guys. Maybe I've said this in a short before, but I just want to. This is a funny story that I hold as a gem story in my years of smoking weed. One day, actually a couple times, but one day in particular, my dog, Charlie here, he found my weed and ate my weed. So one day, me and my wife, we were having a date night, and I used to keep my weed. But it's back when I had a weed tray like most weed heads have who smoke in their home. They have a tray where they have all their stash, their papers, their cigarillos, whatever you need to roll, your weed tray. Sometimes it would be left out, left under the bed, whatever the case. Charlie had got to it. I didn't know he had gotten to it, and we went on a date night, came back, and then we realized that Charlie was like, just staring at us and just spinning his head round and round and round in circles. Now, for those who have either intentionally gotten their dog high or, like me, allowed them to get hold to your stash, or maybe they were in an enclosed room with you and they got high, we know how dogs, appear when they're high. They tend to stare into space and just spin their head round and round and round and round. And we were like, what is wrong with Charlie? He's like going crazy. What is the matter with him? He's like insane. But after I went to roll my blunt, I realized that what I had left, I had a bigger package in the top shelf, but I had my last remnants on my tray, and the bag was tore and it was empty. I'm like, Charlie ate my weed. And Charlie was high out of his mind. And at that time, it was it's still kind of a funny story. At the time, it was a funny story too, but it made me really put things into perspective. At that time, our oldest child, he was still probably like, I don't know, 10, 11, yeah, somewhere around there. So he was older. But, I think about, what if there was a baby who got a hold of that? I'm glad that I got out of smoking weed at that level when we had our smaller children, because I've seen a lot more. Charlie, please stay. I'm seeing a lot more stories that children are getting hold, especially things like edibles, like gummies, like chocolate, which those things really can seem appealing to pets, animals, and even children. And I'm like, it wouldn't have been so funny if that was my. Please stay so we can tell the story. And we have to think, what if our small child had gotten a hold of that? What if, it had did worse things to Charlie, or he had overdosed? He didn't get my big stash. He got just probably like a little blunt or so, and that was enough to, have him. Think how dangerous situation that we can put our children or our pets in when we leave our weed down. And this might be a story just says, just continue to smoke weed, but put your weed in safe spots. But I would argue, if you know this channel, I encourage people who feel like they have a weed addiction issue, which many people do. Maybe it's a sign to quit. Weed is this harmless drug, it's not an issue. But things like this can actually cause weed to be quite dangerous, especially when dealing with animals, dealing with children. So he's here, he's okay, he's alive, but it's a funny story. But made me question on how we treat weed and how we have it around our house, and how it is easy access to our children, to our pets. And guys, let's be safe out here when we're trying to smoke and abuse weed. So, this brief story on how my dog ate my weed. He's okay, but it's a warning, guys. Until next time, guys, like, subscribe, share. Most importantly, comment below. Maybe you have a story about your dog. I'm not sure. Maybe this is normal. Yeah, I don't know. Next time, guys, like, subscribe, share. Comment below. Peace.